So we come from Missoula. But I guess I'll just give you a little background about myself to start off. This is, if you're still looking for your square in your bingo that says 10 years plus of farm to school experience, I'm your girl. Because I just hit my 10-year in farm to school mark. I started off at a teaching farm in Massachusetts. I moved to work at managed a high school garden and greenhouse program in Connecticut. Bopped around, I taught science for a little while, started beautiful school gardens in Colorado, and now have been with Garden City Harvest for 4 years.
I'm Erin. What do you want to know about me? I was born and raised in Austin, Texas, went to school at the University of Virginia where I studied global development and global sustainability, which really meant I was studying food systems in the context of anthropology and environmental planning. From there, I've done a whole host of things as related to the food system. So I started and ran an after-school garden club, worked in California and food systems for a while, both with the San Francisco Unified School District and their school meals program, and then in state and national policy. Made my way to Montana, ran therapeutic programs for grief and bereaved communities, and then landed at Garden City Harvest just earlier this growing season. So I've been on the team since May.
We're so glad to have Erin along. But again, so Garden City Harvest is a nonprofit in Missoula. We have 31 employees, and that's not just farm to school. There are 4 different programs. There are 4 neighborhood farms with CSAs, and we donate a couple of, oh, there we go, great. We did have a slide for that, great. So good for 1 of 4 programs. Community gardens is one of them. There are 11 different community garden plots with 400 individual plots for folks in the community. And there's always a waiting list, which is really wonderful. There's the Youth Harvest Project, which has a farm at one of the group homes in Missoula. And so the kiddos that live at the group homes are hired and provided with meaningful work to work on that farm. And then we've got a farm called the Peace Farm that is affiliated with the University of Montana. And so we get interns from the University of Montana to work on that farm. And we also do educational programming through our farm school department. So we do farm field trips, and we used to do summer camps pre-COVID. So we're still working back up to that. But our big job is to manage, or Erin and I's big job is to manage the 7 different school gardens in Missoula. And so we have a contract with Missoula County Public Schools, and each year we meet with the head of curriculum to remind them what their different jobs are, what our different roles are, to make sure that every year we're checking in and saying, hey, remember, we're still here, and these are the goals that we both like to accomplish. And then we each have MOUs with each of the different principals at each of the 7 different elementary schools, again, so we're always checking in with those folks. And so our job is to make sure that the garden committees don't fall apart, that someone is there taking care of the gardens, and we're often there in the summer making sure that summer programs continue to happen. We also do garden lessons in the spring and in the fall. So right now we're doing 2 different grade levels. We're visiting the schools 4 times each year to do different garden-based lessons. We also have a program called Farmer in the Classroom, where we go to every 2nd grade classroom in the district. So not only at the 7 schools with school gardens, but at the other 2 as well, which is kind of nice for us because our job is quite seasonal and it kind of helps fill it in while also providing the rest of or another grade level worth of students with topics in nutrition and food and agriculture, like honeybees and storage vegetables and cows, which is really, really fun. And then again, at that one educational farm called the Peace Farm, which stands for the Project in Ecological Agriculture and Society, a great acronym. We have some wonderful educational field trips, and that is paired with our Farmer in the Classroom program. So it's capped in the fall and the spring after they do that 6 months of programming with us in the classroom.
Amazing. So today, what are we hoping to do? These are our learning objectives. We hope that after the next hour together, we have 50 minutes left here, that you may better understand strategies for harnessing school, parent, community resources to power and sustain your school gardens. Heard some folks speak back to that. That you could more effectively plan and facilitate the garden committee meeting and feel more comfortable developing garden committee goals. I will add to this, starting a garden committee if you don't have a garden committee yet, that you feel like you have the tools to do that. Before we move too much deeper in today's presentation, I also want to give a disclaimer that what we're offering today are best practices. It doesn't always look that way. Garden committees ebb and flow. We won't have that. So these are things that we've learned, that Lori has learned and passed along to me throughout the years of doing this work. This is what it would be in an ideal setting, in an ideal world. It's not necessarily a representation of all of the groups that we're working with right now.
Cool. Okay, so why are garden committees important to the success of Harvest School? Well, as you all know, they provide ownership to the school community. You get people invested in the space, of course. They're going to do more work and they're going to want to help you continue to do the work as well. They help with longevity, staying power. We all know, a lot of you, I've talked to you earlier today even, that you've got one person disappeared. There's a greenhouse that's now not being utilized as best as it could. And then also, so you just get kids and parents invested and supportive of the goals and the missions of Farm to School.
So it's really fun if you just go to a presentation and we talk at you for an hour, right? No. So today we are going to talk about the 5 P's of effective garden committees, but the way that we're going to do that is through some breakout conversations. So we believe that to help foster the strongest garden committees possible, these are the foundational principles, so to speak. Another P in there. Yeah. To help do that. So we will be talking about people, place, the process, preparation, and purpose. Yeah, I went to the second one. We're going to talk through some prompts that will help guide your conversation for each of these 5 Ps. And then we will break out into 5 different groups to help further some brainstorming and conversation around tangible actuals. How can you take this back to your gardens and your communities too?
And when we do break out, we've got the prompts. We're not going to leave the prompts up, but we'll give each group the prompts so that you can use them and write them up on your boards, and then we'll go along and share after. But just to get you all thinking about it as a whole, the first P is purpose. Okay, so think, what are the different purposes a garden or a committee may have? Why is having a purpose important? And what should committees consider when setting goals? And now we also have a list of things that we think are really important for each of these. And so we'll add these onto your own ideas when we're all finished.
The second P is people. Who's on your garden committee? Who are potential stakeholders who should be involved? What are strategies and tools you can use to recruit garden committee members or possible garden committee members to join? And some example roles, once you have recruited these folks, how are they actually going to engage and serve on your garden committee? So the people group will be thinking about these questions.
And then a place, right? And so what are the most inviting environments to host a garden committee meeting? What environments are least inviting? And when and where can garden committees take place? Thinking about, it's not always super fun to meet in the English teacher's classroom. She probably doesn't want to be there anymore after teaching a little bit.
Preparation, how can we make the most effective use of people's time, right? So thinking about what we can do in advance to make the meetings effective and efficient, supplies of materials. So I think it was in a session yesterday where we were thinking about this concept of like choice points, that you can do this work in advance such that when this thing happens, you're ready to go and make a different kind of decision. That's what we're hoping we can foster here too. So if we thought through, how can I be best prepared for these kinds of meetings? When you get back, you're ready to go. So the preparation group will think about that.
And the last group is the process. During a meeting, what is important to keep in mind for order for it to be effective? There'll be like some meeting where nobody actually wants to be there or feels like your time is being utilized effectively. And then what strategies can be made to make these meetings go smoothly?
Amazing. So we will take about the next
30, well,
30.
20, we're gonna give,
Yeah.
no, we're gonna give you all 5 minutes to brainstorm. And then we're gonna come back and share. So it will be like 5 or 6 minutes. If you guys feel like it's really going, we'll give you another extra few minutes.
Yeah. So let's do groups of 2, maybe 3. We've got like 13 of us in the room here. There are these post-it papers, what do you call these things, hanging on the wall, where you can write ideas. Like Lori said, you've got the questions printed out, so we'll hand those out to help guide conversation here. Thank you. And we'll take 5 minutes.
All right, so process group. Now, some of you might not be participating. Thanks, Mr. Popper's thing. That's I want to keep saying keywords.
And if
All right.
you, how many virtual attendees do we have?
We have 2 right now.
Okay.
They
Oh.
communicate together.
I mean,
And they
I'm not even-
discuss.
No,
I'm just,
whichever
Yes.
one.
I'm guessing so.
Yeah.
She wants to go. She's not participating.
Yeah, let's see that.
Here, I was gonna say,
you need to understand.
All right, so
Maybe all of you need purpose. And then when you want to start writing, you can just like jot your ideas on the board.
Yeah.
We want to just go right to the.
Yeah. Go right to your space.
Go right to
You take that.
Okay.
To maintain the balance.
Yeah. got some new ideas. Go back.
You have no pages.
We had a little printing faux pas, so some of them have a little bit of ink where there should be no ink, but you'll forgive us for that.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so we're gonna head back to the beginning. We're gonna start with our purpose. So, was there someone from the purpose group that would be willing? Should I start that? Yeah. The purpose group that would be willing to share what you've brainstormed.
Yeah, so I guess what we threw up there, the purpose is having a garden community. Community is like to help maintain your garden, obviously. They can also help create your vision and mission and like how big is it? What's going to happen? Who's going, like all those little things. And then like with setting goals wise, making sure they're like SMART goals. So that means like specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Wow, perfect. And then like there's, I think like along with like the vision and mission too, like the different opportunities there are for experiential learning for these kiddos and stuff in the school gardens. Yeah, and I guess like a healthy lifestyle. We talked a little bit about food sovereignty and how that can help play a role in that. And then also like different things for your purpose, like what are the outputs that you want to put in there? Is it like all education? Are you trying to produce food that is going to go somewhere else in the cafeterias, the food bank, whatever it might be?
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys. That was great. And so it's exactly right. And you've got so many more things on your list that we didn't even think of. And we do have our notes there, so you don't have to write too much down if you have any other ideas. But I think that the SMART aspect is really important. It's great to have a lot of goals and ideas about what you want to do, but setting goals and making them time bound and measurable really changes things, right? So different purposes that we're thinking of in addition to those for your garden committee: planning, coordinating projects, solving problems that you have, making important decisions, and then someone that's maintaining the committee by giving and receiving information, just someone who's like an information keeper, and of course building community.
Love it. I just think it's really awesome that you all mentioned like you can help. Yeah, the purpose of the committee may be different in school to any community, right? Like there could be a school where the purpose of the garden committee is to help get food from the garden into the kitchen. The purpose could be just to help break ground and build your community for like the very project oriented one too. So I love that addition too. People. People group.
Yeah, would you like to share? Sure. We kind of listed different stakeholders: food service director, FFA, 4-H, PTA, HOMAC or FCS, strategies, family cooking night, plant cell, parent teacher conferences, school newsletters, social media announcements. And I think we're all in pretty rural schools, so it might look different for somebody else, but I think, yeah, this is like our list. And then volunteer roles: planting, watering, moving, harvesting, cleanup, supply management, logistics, and then education. And of course, this would be depending on the purpose, probably what these people would be.
Absolutely, right, that'll dovetail from the purpose of the committee.
Fabulous. These are great ideas. Thank you all so much.
It's kind of fun to get to go after you, because I get to just add more to your great ideas, but absolutely, thinking about all those folks who are connected to a school community. So parents, teachers, administrators, other school staff, certainly those working in food prep in the school, others in the community, so nonprofits or after school program. We have a lot of flagship coordinators in Missoula who are really involved in having gotten the garden started or garden programming. who else? Volunteer organizations, master gardeners, school resource coordinators. We work with a lot of the family resource coordinators in Missoula to help get produce to families in the community at that school who are in need. Behavior specialists, so many therapeutic programs can be happening outdoors. So if you're working with paraeducators or like Western Montana Mental Health employs a lot of the behavioral specialists in Missoula County at least, so getting those folks involved in our committee, having a broad range of stakeholders for that sustainability point, so it's not just your one garden champion. I love the strategies on here, so many ways to recruit members. Would echo a lot of that using school or PTA, PTO listservs, newsletters, flyers, exactly, open house, parent-teacher conferences. One of the things that has worked really well, I think, too, is that direct outreach. So if you know someone specifically who seems really called to this kind of work, that direct referral or direct ask. Over the summer, we've been having Lori and I have been in the garden each week at each one of our schools that we work at, and there was a paraeducator who come to one of the gardens very often, and she wasn't on the garden committee. So I asked her, and she said yes, right? So seeing who's interested and who shows up too. Parent recruitment, asking kids. And then the roles, I really love these. Other roles that we have employed would be mirroring possibly like a board structure, so a president of the garden committee, someone who's like your lead convener, right? A treasurer, typically this role has been played by the PTO or the PTA at our schools because they are doing the fundraising for the garden. So they're also then managing the budget for the garden. A secretary or a note keeper. In our garden committees, because we don't work at the schools, we've also had someone play that teacher liaison role who can help, for example, schedule lessons when we're coming in the spring or the fall and to coordinate with other teachers. If you work at the school, you may not need that role on your garden committee. So plenty of roles. These are fabulous. Yes.
One of our virtual participants, Tim, wanted to include the Confederated Salish Kootenai tribes in the group of people too.
Absolutely. Thinking about all kinds of, partners and stakeholders, sovereign nations that are nearby or have students at your school too. Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
But yeah, and I think those roles help add ownership too. If someone's the note taker, they would know that they need to be there each week. Things keep going. Great. And our place group.
So we talked about with modes and writings, like something that's very comfortable and flexible. The garden, weather permitting, would probably be your number one because you get all your inspiration from there and you can actually like test out the flexible seating options that you have in there for the kids, for the like outdoor classroom, or see what needs to be added. The school kitchen or lunchroom, and then committee members' homes, potluck maybe, and then I love all of the things that you put on here too, is like local coffee shops and stuff like that. Leasing wedding is something if you're uncomfortable. Lighting if you're like in a fluorescent room at 7 o'clock in the evening, you feel pretty icky. Classrooms, it could be great, could not be. And in the garden in the rain, have an alternative meeting spot. And when we just said again, like very, it could either be flexible or like a set schedule, like that you need to meet once a week or once a month, and maybe that changes depending on people's availability, or we know that it's like every third Monday at 2 o'clock we're doing it. And then having a virtual option for those not able to meet in person, so that you have more like attendance, even if they're not able to be there. And then maybe like committee lunches or dinners, potlucks, and maybe from the garden.
I would like to add something on the place just because from previous experience, I would make sure that like if you're planning a meeting somewhere, make sure that it is neutral, like neutral ground. Because doing a meeting at somebody's house might be a great idea, but then what happens if 3 people have beef with that one person? You just lost 3 people that could potentially be helping you. Like that was one thing that I didn't realize when I first started doing this whole garden at faith thing. Is we did it at a local place and 3 people had beef with that person and I could never get them back because they thought that was the only way I was gonna do things. So definitely choose neutral ground, whether it's at school or it's a local, like your local library, or just make sure it's neutral.
I have something to add to that too. I was on a committee, a wrestling club committee, parents for little tiny kids, and the first meeting I went to was at a bar. And everybody at the table was drinking and we did not have to be. And so, you know, if you're gonna go to a bar to have fun, that's one thing, but I think it's a bad place to have a meeting.
We're doing what for small kids?
Yeah, okay, and so, nice segue to what I was gonna say, least inviting and most inviting. So least inviting, I have on here, not kid-friendly places, places that serve alcohol, loud, limited, and things with, limited seating. However, we, and I don't drink, but most of our meetings have been at breweries, a lot of them. Because in Missoula, every there's a brewery in every corner, and they're all different. Some of them have like kids play areas, you know, and serious.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Yeah, they're like kids players in Missoula. Right, and so it's like if you are having trouble getting people to a meeting, and you know, I'm just saying. A brewery's a spot where teachers are like, all right, you know, I'm gonna go out right after school at 4 o'clock and head down to complex, so there's a kids play area, and I can bring my kid out.
Let them have 2 drinks and then they've been designated for 6 different items.
Yeah.
There's that too, right?
Good, but but yes, but mostly gardens. The gardens are huge. If you can get in the gardens, and that's a great spot. And of course, places that are convenient for teachers and parents. You know, one of our schools meets at 8 a.m. before school starts, and in that neighborhood, the parents like to get up early, and they're there. And there's a lot of people there at 8 a.m. So just gonna find what feels right for everybody.
Yep, let's keep moving. Preparation, which was our virtual folks.
Yes, so we have Tim, who works at St. Ignatius High School on the Flathead Reservation. And then we have Jan Sinkowitz from North Dakota State University Extension. And so for preparation, they included, let me find it. So Tim said, I think making sure all of the interested stakeholders are present will be important. I'm not sure I've identified all of them, but printed agendas, snacks and drinks, and ample, comfortable seating in a pleasant atmosphere, maybe the garden site. Finally, breaking the meetings and agenda into reasonable, accomplishable tasks and having the end goal in sight, but make the tasks manageable and incremental. And then Jan said, done in advance, creating and sharing an agenda ahead of time, accessible time and location, not during core class times if you want student and teacher involvement, starting and ending on time, sometimes harder than it seems.
Good. Absolutely. Nailed it. Thank you both so much for your online presentation and participation. I think it was Tim who mentioned having that like broad picture goal in sight and really action oriented tasks for your meetings too. There's a lot of agenda templates that exist in the world that can help do that, where you would have perhaps your purpose at the top of every agenda that then helps guide. But I'm jumping the gun because an agenda is hugely helpful to have in advance, to circulate in advance. I like to show up to meetings where I know what I'm going to be doing rather than just here's 30 minutes that I've grabbed out of your schedule and I don't know what's expected of me during that time. Following up on action items from previous meetings can also be really helpful, right? To help make sure that we're tracking, we're aligned on where we're moving. If something hasn't been done, we want to address it at the meeting. Tim also said this, I think, but making sure that everyone's invited. Have you invited all stakeholders? Have you gotten RSVPs? Do you know who's going to be there? That direct outreach, again, mass email, you all may know, is maybe not the best way to get people to a meeting. Setting up, making sure that you're there early. So your presentation's ready to go if you're giving a presentation, or the space is nice. There's enough seats for everybody, right? taking care to make it a space that feels welcoming and like you are hosting people.
You have to also that, if you do have a committee with like parents, putting that as a parent role, because teachers, if the meetings are right after school, like most of our meetings, like I rolled in hot, I'm just like shell shocked for my day. And like, you know, we're like, where am I, what are we doing? Okay, now we can put like, so to have like a parent volunteer or another staff member do that. So that like, that's a little, something off of the teacher plate.
Yes. Good. And then lastly, our process.
Okay, so for process, definitely having an agenda was a big thing. On that agenda, make sure you're going over your old business, you're recapping what happened at the previous meetings, following up with those people, getting committee reports on that, getting your treasurer's reports, getting your secretary, having them read their minutes. I mean, I'm such a FA advisor, sorry. I may have been that secretary, so, but also to go into your new businesses, make sure you're assigning roles, assigning committees as to, okay, we need a cleanup committee, we need a weeding committee, we need these certain people for our stakeholders, these are your guys' job, this is what's gonna actually help us get things done. And what is gonna be happening through the seasons. So like, this committee may not have anything to do until fall. This committee might not have anything to do until spring. What can you guys do to be helping those other committees and supporting those that then will just continue to keep the ball rolling? Big thing, parliamentary law, Robert's Rules of Order, making sure that that meeting is going as that agenda is staying, and so that you do get done at those start and end times. People's time is very precious, and you don't want to be wasting it, or else they feel like, well, that was a waste of my time that I'll never get back, probably not going to come back, right? So it's just one of those things, is being very cognitive of people's time and the energy that they're putting towards you, and being able to give that back in some way. So
Efficiency is the name of the game. That's right.
Well, the more times you have to repeat something or you got nothing done, you've just lost, because you burned out 3 people because they can't keep coming to something and feel like nothing's wrong. And so
100%.
it's like, how do you, I mean, even if you really remind people about goal setting, like we can all have huge pipe dreams, but it's like, what is attainable? What can you really manage right here? And what are we gonna do with that? So like, is that really important? Do you really need the umbrella for the picnic table? Or,
That's right.
you know what I'm saying? So it's like, instead of doing 55 fundraisers, let's do 1. And let's make it really great and really use our time effectively. And that's something that was a hard lesson to learn from parents in doing different kinds of fundraising, but one that really hit home, because it's like, once you realize, okay, yeah, so I love this, but they may be doing it out of the kindness of their heart, and they kind of like it, but still have another 6 other lives that have to be, you know, maintained over here.
Oh, that's right. We are all busy people, and let's get these meetings going. Let's do the thing and then grow it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. So I guess I don't really know how much I really have to add to that. That's right. Just have a facilitator, assign roles, make sure that things go smoothly.
Fantastic. So those are the 5 Ps. I think just be proud. You all offer so much already. Okay, I don't know, we offered too much new information there, but it can be so helpful to have a framework to push up against when you're starting or reinvigorating as our committee. So we are going to offer in the last 10 minutes or so here some other best practices that we employ in our gardens for staying power and for making sure when your garden champion is no longer there, the garden is still flourishing. So one of the ways in which we do this is through garden maps and site plans. So this is an example from 2 of our schools in Missoula. These are the raised beds, and I think we have on here, yeah, some other like perennial native spaces as well of what was planted this spring. There are copies of these in each of the garden sheds. They are saved on our servers year over year. So I could look back and see what was planted at the Chief Shiloh Garden in 2017. This helps with crop rotation. It helps with historical knowledge. And then we create a new garden map in the fall. We've done any harvesting and replanting over the summer or in the fall. We referenced this when talking about the 5 Ps, but certainly keeping meeting notes and follow-ups too to understand the history of the garden committee. Again, for myself, I just joined in May. I can go back and reference those to understand a little bit of where this garden has evolved from and its process there. Same is true, Christina, you I know will know this, but for budgets or donations, how are you tracking finances and that kind of thing too? And then MOUs, which Lori spoke to with the schools as well, having that documented, who's responsible for what, how are we sharing duties here? It can feel formal, I think, sometimes to bring those into meetings, but so helpful to have that articulated and written down. So that if someone does leave, it's broader than just that one person.
And we also keep track of produce numbers too, which is something, but we all have Google Drive now. Like you have a drive year after year and anybody in your committee can look over that. That's kind of nice. Good, so here's some site guides again. So this is something that we have for every school. And this is more for the school staff. So every year in the fall, we'll go to a staff meeting and say hello, we're not part of the school, just to remind folks who we are, and then give them this important information about the garden, remind them that it's theirs to use. It's got information about how to enter the space. All of our gardens have locks on them. So that the code, it tells you some things that are in there, laminated maps, etc. Expectations, and again, this is for making sure that everyone's on the same page. So we have garden expectations, and these are simple rules like gardens not recess, nobody's hopping on stumps, okay? So we have calm body expectation, etc. Contact info for folks that can help them do more in the space is kind of our constant struggle, is making sure that people know that the garden is theirs to use. And then also we list a bunch of different simple ways that folks can use the gardens. And that's really helpful too. And that's also, I don't think, to our online curriculum as well as other curriculums that we find super helpful. And then on the back of that sheet, we'll put a copy of the garden map. And so for every staff meeting, we go to pass that out to everyone so they have something to hold for the future. Got it. Promotional materials. So these are 2 flyers that we used and made this summer. These are highlighting 2 of our summer programs in our school gardens. I'm going to talk you through the programs really quick. Lori mentioned them, but I think they may resonate also. So open garden hours. We have a Garden City Harvest staff or school representative in the garden once a week for 12 about weeks of the whole summer. For 3 hours. So Tuesday mornings from 9 to noon, I'm at Hawthorne Elementary, and the garden's open and folks can come in, help weed, help take care of the garden, see it maybe for the first time, families are coming by, and then take home and harvest fresh produce. And then adopt a garden, which is how we help encourage and foster and sustain engagement from the school community over the course of the summer. So we ask families or interested school staff or neighbors, community members, all those stakeholders we've identified as the people column to volunteer to take care of the garden once a week throughout the summer. So they can sign up on that fabulous Google Google Drive. We send them information like that site guide that helps them get into the garden, and then Lori and I are leading every single garden every single day. Awesome, Lori spoke to this too. We track garden produce rates, so how much is harvested. We've got our contact info on all of the gardens. They have kiosks that say if the water has exploded, please call us. They've got the maps in there as well. So just trying to get the information out as much as possible. And these flyers go through the school. So again, working with the garden committee, family resource coordinators. We really want to next year print them out and give them to every single child when they come to the garden lessons and such too, to get the word. And I don't know if we mentioned this, but we also have, which is kind of cool, a kiosk outside of all of our gardens so that people walking by, if they're curious or they want to know how they can help, it's right there. And I think that's helped a lot too. Yeah. Oh, this is me again. Yeah.
Someone spoke to this too, Christina, it might have been you, a calendar of what needs to happen in the garden every month is like super dang helpful. If not every month, every season at least, there are certain things that need to happen every year at the same time. So having, again, that documented in some way, so that if someone's coming in new, they know what needs to get done when, is super helpful. A bunch of different templates for that. This is one, Lori and I use another one that is monthly, that helps us track our job duties. You can include lessons on there, what you want to plant when, all of, the options are endless of what you could include in there, but super helpful to have that documented too.
I have a question. This is so much really great information. I am wondering, are you sharing these slides? Can we share them?
We can share them,
That would be
absolutely. I've got
fantastic.
cards here, and you can take our.
Okay, okay.
And I think, we send them to Aubrey and somehow they get distributed to all of you
Great,
too.
great.
Yes.
I'm like, how am I gonna present this out to my committee that I already have?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great question.
Cool, all right, so just a couple more. Good, another thing that really helps with staying power is photographs, right? Like another great thing, you can add a folder to your Google Drive. This is Lowell Elementary School, and Lowell is actually our oldest school garden, and it began in 2008. But the school made an addition, and they put the addition right over the school garden. And so in 2018, we had to remake the school garden. And so this is from when we and what was really wonderful is now that we've been doing it for so long, we got the district to purchase a fence, put in weed mat, and put in wood chips. And so we came in and we put in raised beds and put in our perennial space. But we also learned a lot of lessons. But anyway, just photographs are important, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so this is the garden in 2018. And then 2019, we got everything planted with a new shed that the community helped build. You can see in the back right corner, you got some beautiful stumps because you always want to have a great classroom space in your garden. And then this year, we wanted this for a really long time. The garden committee got a grant from the Whole Kids Foundation. Highly recommended. Got lots of little grants of $3,000 that are pretty new for everyone, I think. But we got this grant to put in an ADA accessible pathway and some wonderful wheelchair raised beds. And so now the garden is the happiest place on earth. Most beautiful. Yeah, it's great. And then another way to help stay in power are garden celebrations, right? We want to make gardening and school gardens fun. So work days, make sure there's food and snacks, have harvest parties, do potlucks, have volunteer appreciation events. We do a really fun family-friendly cooking class right before school starts, and we set up little tents in the garden spaces, and under each tent is a different recipe for a meal that groups can cook together. And so everyone takes turns cooking a little bit of each meal and celebrates together, and people just love it. And then write thank you notes. It goes a really long way. And food brings us all together, of course.
So did you just say you have a bunch of people cooking several different dishes?
Yes.
And how do you pull that off?
Well, it would be like under
Wow.
one tent, you're making zucchini noodles. And so we usually have one person that's watching. And then so kids can come make a few zoodles and then run off and do another.
So it's all parts of
It's
one
4
meal?
dishes as part of one meal.
Okay. Okay. I get it.
Group cooking.
Cool.
Yes, for the little ones, you don't have too much attention to do one thing.